नमस्कार। श्रीमती पीएन दोषी महिला महाविद्यालय के एनएसएस यूनिट द्वारा विश्व महिला दिवस के उपलक्ष्य में आयोजित नेशनल लेवल वेबिनार अर्थात राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठी में आप सभी का स्वागत है। कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाने से पहले मैं एनएसएस यूनिट के प्रोग्राम ऑफिसर डॉक्टर संतोष जी से निवेदन करूंगा कि आप एनएसएस सॉन्ग प्ले करें।
समाज के लिए उठिए उठिए, जगे स्वराष्ट्र के लिए जगे जगे। स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे, स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे। उठे समाज के लिए उठिए उठिए। हमारे संग साथियों, हम बढ़े तो सब बढ़ेंगे अपने आप साथियों। जमीन पे आसमान को उतार दे, जमीन पे आसमान को उतार दे। उठे समाज के लिए उठे उठे। उदासियों को दूर कर खुशी को बांटते चले, गाँव और शहर की दूरियों को बांटते चले। ज्ञान को प्रचार दे प्रसार दे, विज्ञान को प्रचार दे प्रसार दे। स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे, स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे। उठे समाज के लिए उठे उठे। समर्थ बाल वृद्ध और नारियां रहे सदा, हरे भरे वनों की शान ओढ़ती रहे धरा। तरक्कियों की एक नई कतार दे, तरक्कियों की एक नई कतार दे। स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे, स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे। उठे समाज के लिए उठे उठे। ये जाति धर्म बोलियां बने न शूल राह की, बढ़ाए मेल प्रेम की अखंडता की चाह की। सद्भावना से ये चमन निखार दे, सद्भावना से ये चमन निखार दे। स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे, स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे। उठे समाज के लिए उठे उठे, जगे स्वराष्ट्र के लिए जगे जगे। स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे, स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे, स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे, स्वयं सजे वसुंधरा संवार दे।
सर स्क्रीन स्टॉप पे।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद संतोष सर। जैसा कि हमने आपसे बताया कि पीएन दोषी महाविद्यालय के एनएसएस यूनिट ने विश्व महिला दिवस पर नेशनल लेवल की संगोष्ठी आयोजित की है, जिसका विषय है वुमेन रियल आर्किटेक्ट ऑफ सोसाइटी। आज हमारे साथ इस संगोष्ठी में उपस्थित मेहमानों से मैं आप लोगों को परिचित करा दूं। डॉक्टर आशा मेनन मैडम हैं हमारे बीच में, जो कि आज की मुख्य वक्ता हैं, और वो प्रिंसिपल हैं श्रीमती पीएन दोषी महिला महाविद्यालय की। डॉक्टर मधुमिता बंदोपाध्याय हैं, आज की मुख्य वक्ता हैं, एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर हैं इतिहास विभाग की। डॉक्टर विनोद जाल्टे सर हैं, जो कि असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर हैं अंग्रेजी विभाग के और एनएसएस एसएनडीटी के जोनल कोऑर्डिनेटर भी। वह उष्मा है, ऊर्जा है, प्रकृति है, क्योंकि वही तो आधी दुनिया और पूरी स्त्री है। स्त्री और पुरुष परमात्मा की दो विशिष्ट सृजन है। यह दोनों एक दूसरे के अनिवार्य पूरक भी हैं। एक के अभाव में दूसरा निष्प्रभावी है, लेकिन भारतीय संस्कृति में स्त्री की भूमिका पुरुषों की अपेक्षा कहीं अधिक सम्माननीय मानी गई है। हमारे आदि ग्रंथों में नारी को गुरुतर मानते हुए यहाँ तक घोषित किया गया है कि यत्र नारेस्तु पूज्यन्ते रमन्ते तत्र देवता, अर्थात जहाँ नारी की पूजा की जाती है देवता वहां निवास करते हैं। माँ अर्थात माँ के रूप में नारी धरती पर अपनी सबसे पवित्रतम रूप में है। माता यानी जननी, माँ को ईश्वर से भी बढ़कर माना गया है। कभी शक्ति बनकर, तो कभी माँ का प्रेम दुलार बनकर, कभी बहन बनकर, कभी पत्नी बनकर। जीवन के विभिन्न रूपों को, स्त्री जीवन के बहुत सारे स्वरूपों को यह जो है हमारे बीच में शक्ति के रूप में संचरित करती है। इतिहास गवाह है कि भारतीय नारी पुरुष को प्रतिष्ठित और उपलब्धि के सर्वोच्च शिखर पर आरूढ़ करने के लिए स्वयं को भी दांव पे लगाती है। नारी के इस अभिनव व्यक्तित्व और कृतित्व को लक्ष्य करके ही यह युक्ति कही गई होगी। दिन की रोशनी ख्वाबों को बनाने में गुजर गई, रात की नींद बच्चे को सुलाने में गुजर गई। जिस घर में मेरे नाम की तख्ती भी नहीं, सारी उम्र उस घर को सजाने में गुजर गई। तो कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करते हैं। महिला दिवस की आप सभी को हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। और जब भी हम महिला दिवस की बातचीत करते हैं तो हमारे मन में एक ख्याल, एक जहन में बात आती है कि आखिर हम इसे मनाते क्यों हैं। तो मनाने को लेकर के ढेर सारे लोगों ने अपनी अपनी बातें कही, लेकिन इसका जो संबंध जोड़ा जाता है वह पाश्चात्य संस्कृति से जोड़ा जाता है। और कहा जाता है कि क्लारा जेटकिंग ने महिला दिवस मनाने के लिए कोई तारीख नहीं पक्की की थी। 1917 में युद्ध के दौरान रूस की महिलाओं ने ब्रेड एंड पीस यानी खाना और शांति की मांग की थी, और महिलाओं की हड़ताल ने वहां के सम्राट निकोलस को पद छोड़ने के लिए मजबूर कर दिया था। और अंतरिम सरकार ने महिलाओं को मतदान का अधिकार भी दे दिया था। उस समय रूस के जूलियन कैलेंडर का प्रयोग हुआ करता था, और जिस दिन महिलाओं ने यह हड़ताल की थी वह तारीख भी 23 फरवरी थी, लेकिन ग्रेगोरियन कैलेंडर में यह तारीख 8 मार्च था। और उसी के बाद से अंतर्राष्ट्रीय महिला दिवस 8 मार्च को मनाया जाने लगा। और बहुत सारी जगहों पे आज के दिन अवकाश की भी बात कही जाती है। मैं कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए डॉक्टर संतोष सर को निवेदन करता हूं कि आज के हमारे अतिथि विनोद सर का परिचय दें और उन्हें आमंत्रित करें। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Ved sir. On behalf of NSS cell of our college, I would like to welcome Dr. Vinod Jalte sir. Vinod sir is a zonal coordinator of NSS cell of SNDT Women's University, and sir has worked as an NSS program officer of our college for 4 years. Welcome you, Vinod sir, for joining today's program.
सर विनोद सर आप अनम्यूट कीजिए प्लीज।
Yeah, thank you, sir. Respected Madam. Since past 16 years, we are one of the college in our university which has marked at many places. We are still leading at NSS, and I congratulate this team for organizing such a event on this noble day. Let me share my experiences. During my childhood, I remember there were two women working in my village. One was my mother; she was a nurse in government hospital, and her attendant. She used to share with us when a baby girl used to take birth, how except her mother, nobody used to be happy in her family. And then she used to tell that she to appease the family, she used to tell, look at the girl, she looks like Saraswati, she looks like, look at her aura and all these things. This was the story of 30 years back. Now today we have masked on, means women are marching on every front. They have wiped out all the patriarchal, so-called patriarchal boundaries created by our society. And with this note, I wish happy Women's Day to all of you and congratulate our NSS team to continue such endeavors in future also. Thank you very much. Santosh sir. Santosh sir.
Wait, sir, over to you.
जी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। अब मैं श्रद्धा मैम को आमंत्रित करता हूं, हमारी आज की मुख्य वक्ता और महाविद्यालय के प्रिंसिपल डॉक्टर आशा मेनन मैडम का परिचय दें और उन्हें आमंत्रित करें आज के वक्तव्य के लिए।
Thank you, Prakash sir. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mrs. Shraddha Rokre, Faculty of BCA Department and NSS Program Officer. Welcome you all to today's webinar. It is indeed special privilege and a pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Asha Menon, who is going to talk to us about impact of COVID-19 on women. Asha Madam is recognized guide for PhD at SNDT Women's University, Mumbai. Currently, she is guiding 3 PhD students for their research. She had received UGC FIP for PhD research from year 2004 to 2006. She also received UGC minor research grant for research in year 1998. Madam has presented various research papers in international conferences at Australia, Dubai, Nepal, London, and New York. She received the Maharshi Karve Utkrishta Shikshak Puraskar at SNDT Women's University for the year 2017-18. She also received Dronacharya Puraskar in year 2018. Madam also cited 17 research papers. Madam had received 100% travel grant from UGC for presenting a paper titled Challenges Faced by Preschool Teachers During Storytelling Sessions in Preschools of Mumbai Slums at ICAB, ICE, and ICTE conference at New York. Also, for presenting a paper titled Early Childhood Education Classrooms in Mumbai Slums, How Child-Friendly Are They? In the London International Conferences. She is working committee member for formulating regulatory guidelines for creche and daycare services in Maharashtra in consultation with Maharashtra State Women's Commission, Maharashtra State Commission for Protection of Child Rights, UNICEF Maharashtra Field Office. She won first prize and best paper in oral presentation at International Conference on Public Mental Health and Neurosciences in year 2018-19. Also won best paper in oral presentation at National Conference on Research Streams in Design, Management and Education in year 2012 at SDPS Women's College, Indore. Madam won second prize for poster presentation on adolescent children's attitude and practices on sexual health and sexuality, Platinum Jubilee International Conference, Empowerment for Excellence in Home Science in year 2006 at New Delhi. Madam has published various books like rising to the challenge, unlocking leadership potential in school-age children, current concerns, and women's studies. Your guide to success breastfeeding, art for fun and learn. She chaired a session on early childhood education at London International Conference on Education in year 2012. She also chaired elementary education at International Conference on Contemporary Issues in Education in year 2015 at Dubai. Yogic Research in Public Health and Medicine, 4th International Conference on Public Mental Health and Neurosciences in year 2017 at Bangalore. Madam is also appointed chair for the conference subtheme education for the 7th International Congress of Stress, Performance and Wellness in year 2020. Now, without taking much time, I would like to invite Asha Madam for her talk. Over to you, Asha Madam.
Thank you, Shraddha, for an elaborate introduction. I think there was no need for that. But anyway, thank you so much. I request the host to please help me share the screen. Give me
Ma'am, you
permission.
already co-host. You can share the screen.
It is showing as disabled.
Okay, I will make you host.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, before I start, I would like to wish everyone a very happy Women's Day. Today is the day that people notice that there are women around them, be it their home, be it their office. But I would say that this is not the only day, but the 365 days of the year are the days that every woman working in whichever spheres of her life should be acknowledged. Be it our grandmother, be it our mother, or anyone else who is there with us.
Ma'am, you can share the screen right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, NSS unit, for giving me this opportunity to give my views on the impact of COVID-19 on women. Now, we all are going through this phase in our life where COVID has engulfed all of us into a situation where they've caught us unaware. In the beginning, we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know how we would cope. We didn't have leaderships around us who would help us and guide us during this pandemic. And that is one of the reasons why there was a lot of confusion and what to do and what not to do. Social distancing was a norm, but the family got distanced, more so because of the work schedule going haywire, especially for women at home. We all know girls and women and the marginalized communities suffer most during the crisis. And this happened with women in COVID too. The existing gender inequalities widened and revealed the ill-preparedness of the government, health system, and social safety nets to respond to the sexual and reproductive health needs of people worldwide. If 2020 left us powerless, you were not alone. Nothing from health to finance seemed to be under our control. A question mark hung over our jobs and our ability to pay the bills. Each day was marked by anxiety and social isolation of lockdown. Now, if we talk about the situation that we are in, especially women, the three spheres that affected them the most were the economic sphere, the health and well-being sphere, and the healthcare system. All these together put a lot of burden on women because they were not able to manage themselves and they were looking forward to people around them and the government to help them cope with the situation that they are in. If you look at the economic impacts on women, they had a greater burden of domestic care, Higher rates of job losses also affected them, and there was reduced financial independence because they were not working anymore. Now, Indian women, as we all know, do most of the household work. Men hardly help. More than 6 hours a day, she is there taking care of the home and the needs of the family around her. This work includes cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, and other activities that require the household to function. Most of such work is disappropriately shouldered by women across the globe. In Canada, though, the disparity between men and women spending time on household chores is the best. Now, if you look at this figure, you see that whether it be the rural area of India or the urban area of India, both women spend the most of the time with household chores compared to men. In rural areas, men spend only 38% of the time and women spend 284% of their time with household work. Whereas in urban areas, men spend 31% of their time with household work and 268% of urban women spend time doing household work. In the absence of the support staff consisting of a cook and a maid, the major share of the household chores rested on the women's fragile shoulders. Women seem to be more stressed than men during the lockdown period. The recent poll conducted by ET Lifestyles, the results also highlight the same. 61% of the respondents voted that women spend a lot of time with domestic work, even though when they are working during the lockdown. Now, this is the household area where number of hours that a woman spends. In India, the woman spends more time at home looking after and caring for others than any other country in the world. In India, women spend about 5.9 hours a day taking care of her household duties, which is more compared to any other country in the world. Now, I'm sharing this because I liked when I was reading through this research paper, which says that Indian women devoted an extra hour to household in the month of April. That was the month when the lockdown was severe, and you could see the graph here, which shows that the women have doubled their work, but men only spend 1 hour each day helping the household chores. Now, if you look into the percentage of working women and their partners by working arrangements during the COVID-19 emergency, you would see that 23% of the women and 33% of the men went to their usual workplace during the COVID situation, whereas 44% women and 30% of men worked from home. And that added to a lot of stress to women juggling between her job and the work that she had without any help. And 33% of women and 37% of men were not working because of the emergency or because of the jobs they lost. Now, this was a problem that many of us faced, that they didn't have jobs, whether it be men or whether it be women, they were fired from their jobs, and that added on to a lot of economical burden on the family. The COVID-19 outbreak in India and the subsequent national lockdown from March 25th altered the landscape of the country's employment sector, with close to 10.9 million jobs being lost across sectors. 2020 was termed as the worst ever year for the job market in India. And that also added to the burden of women to take care of the family. She had to find resources to see that her family survived during this crisis. And that reduced financial independence. That also reduced financial independence to women because she didn't have the money to spend. The next aspect that we look into are the health and well-being impact on women because of COVID. It increased the risk of pregnancy-related deaths in teens and women as such. Now, when you look into the data we got, there were 18,000 teenage girls who became pregnant during this lockdown period, and their health was at stake. And there was a spike in sexual, physical, and domestic violence and exploitation of women and girls around the world. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the healthcare also saw that 32.5% of the health providers cancelled their appointments, and women had nowhere to go in times of crisis. It also said that 15.5% cancelled, women themselves cancelled the appointment because they had no way how they would reach the hospital or reach the clinic for their needs. It also showed that 21.1% women postponed their care at home because they were in so much of need for helping others that they neglected themselves. Now, healthcare system impacts, what impact did it have for women? It increased risk for frontline health workforce. When you look into the frontline health force, especially the nurses, you would see that a majority of them are women. And that risk not only themselves, it also risks their families because they were in and out of hospitals, their workplace, and they risk their families because of that. It also reduced access to the vital health services because there was nothing to try. They didn't have any, the transport was not available, and they were not able to go and meet the doctor or the healthcare center. And it also led to a lot of complications in their life. As the pandemic spread, many countries implemented tough lockdown and travel restrictions in a bid to slow down transmission, which affected women and girls very badly. This decision not only denied women and girls access to time-sensitive and life-saving help, but also distanced them from already difficult to access sexual and reproductive health care. Now, this slide will tell you that the additional indirect deaths in COVID, due to COVID in India, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Pakistan in the last 12 months, you would see a rise, additional deaths, and you would see that a decrease in the services for women and children. Now, the emerging data of COVID-19 also shows that violence among women and girls had increased, and therefore it was also, COVID-19 was also termed as a shadow pandemic. It not only robbed the women of their jobs, it also made them sexually increase to violence. Now, it is also called a shadow pandemic because in around the world, whether it be France, Argentina, Cyprus, Singapore, Canada, these are all developed countries. There also the pandemic created violence at home in the relationship that they were in. Now, all these added to a lot of stress and strain in women. You see that more women suffered from mental health issues during lockdown than men. And in this research, married participants had more mental health problems compared to those who were unmarried, and more so because they had a family to take care of. They had children, they had a husband, they had in-laws staying with them. So that added to the pressure. And people in the age group of 30 to 44 age suffered more mental health issues because this was a vulnerable age for women. They were working, they were at home, and all that created a lot of tensions in and issues related to anxiety, depression, social dysfunction among women. Now, if you look into the age groups of women who suffered the most depression, anxiety, and stress, you would see that 33% of the women in the age group of 16 to 20 suffered depression more as compared to the various age groups 21 to 40 or 40 to 60 and 60 plus. Similarly, anxiety was more in the age group of 21 to 40 years. That is the age when women are working. That added to a lot of anxieties related to their job and the job pressures that they were in. And stress, of course, was more in the elderly population because of the need for them to be taken care of, and everyone was not aware of what this illness was up to. And these were the reasons why stress, anxiety, depression were all found to be. Now, if I have to conclude about the COVID situation in women, I would say, in addition to bearing the brunt of social and economic losses from the pandemic, women appear to be disappropriately negatively affected in terms of physical health and well-being. The various economic, social, and physical stressors that women faced during the pandemic was undoubtedly having an adverse impact on mental health and well-being. With the pandemic, governments have to make difficult decisions about how best to protect the health of their citizens, especially women and young girls. Now, I would like to quote Dr. Ranjana Kumari. In the absence of concreted effort by the government, NGOs, and civil society during the COVID-19 pandemic, India risks losing out on all the gains made by the women's movement in the last 20 years in addressing violence against women. And therefore, I feel we need to be more prepared socially to see that we support the families around us who are a little deprived than what we are, so that the struggles minimize and they also are able to see that both the ends are met. These are the few references that I have quoted, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share my views. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Asha Madam. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Ritu Madam to introduce our next speaker. Over to you, Ritu Madam.
Thank you, Shraddha. Now we have with us today Dr. Madhumita Bandhopadhyay. She is Associate Professor and HOD, Head of the Department of the History in our college, in Srimati P.N. Joshi Women's College. She has presented 30 papers in various national and international conferences and published 20 research papers. Dr. Madhumita is recipient of UGC Fellowship of Faculty Improvement Program for her PhD research. She has been awarded first prize for her paper publications at various conferences in 2014. Dr. Madhumita has also been awarded Guru Dronacharya Puruskar from Bharatiya Janata Party in 2018. She is also a recipient of Mrs. Avibhai Wadia Research Fellowship in the year 1890 by K.R. Kama Oriental Institute for her research project. Today, Dr. Madhumita is going to talk about charting the struggle for women's right in India. We welcome you, Dr. Madhumita Bandhopadhyay, and we are sure that with your expertise and with your work in the research in the area of women and all, our participants will be benefited with your knowledge and insight. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Madhumita, and over to you.
Ma'am, you unmute yourself.
Madhumita ma'am, your voice is, yeah.
I would like to thank the NSS unit of Srimati P.N. Joshi Women's College for inviting me for this session and giving me an opportunity to talk. Thank you so much. At the outset, I would like to wish everybody a very, very happy Women's Day.
Same to you.
Thank you so much. So we start with our with my lecture, with my talk. As mentioned earlier, just a moment. Actually, today I'm not with my own laptop since my camera has some problem. So there are some issues which I'm facing. You can minimize this. Minimize the. Just a moment. Please excuse me for a while. Just a moment. My laptop is pretty easy to. अरे
ভিডিওটা অন হয়নি ভিডিওটা অন হয়নি
Hello, we talk again. Yes, here we are ready. Sorry. The theme of this year's International Women's Day is I Am Generation Equality, Realizing Women's Right. Today, when Asha ma'am was talking about the COVID-19, we realized that there are so many things that we have yet to achieve. We talk about your equality, but are we really equal? That's a big question. But yet we have achieved a lot. Today, we are educated, and thanks to many, many people who have contributed to the movement. And this movement has been there for years together. So today, we are going to look into the history of this movement. In fact, when the NSS unit asked me to give a talk, I was wondering what I should talk on. I first thought I will talk on the history, then I'll talk on also the rights that we have, what are the legal reforms that the government has enacted. But then I realized it's so vast. The history itself is so vast. And I'm sure I'll not be able to accommodate so much. So I decided to focus only on the women's movement in India, which has got a long, long history. So let us go into this women's movement. Now, when you talk about the women's movement, the struggle has been long, as I just told you. And we have seen that women have shown their protest against the subordination in various ways. This can be reflected through mythology, fables, folk stories, songs, humor. Now, I would give you an example of, say, Mirabai. Mirabai left her family for her God. She protested against the institutions of caste and family and accepted the authority of the king and the husband. Now, let us take a bhajan of Meera. Of course, I will not sing it for you, but we'll just see the words that Meera has said, and we will see how she protested against the system that was existing then, how she protested against the subordination of women who were supposed to be living in the house looking after the family. She says, I have Giridhar Gopal and none else. I have seen all the people, there is no one else. My family and my relatives have abandoned me. So she's aware that since she has taken a path which is not so acceptable in the society, her family has abandoned her, her relatives have abandoned her, and she just doesn't care about it. She says that associating with Send and Sages, I lost my prestige in the eyes of the people. She knows that because she has chosen a path which is not the, the stereotype path, she has lost her prestige. But she says, looking at devotees, I feel happy. Looking at worldly people makes me sad. I've churned the milk, saved the milk, and discarded the remainder. Rana sent a bowlful of poison. I drank with devotion. I felt one with God. And the last sentence is very, very important, which I have put in bold. Meera is attracted towards the divine Krishna. Come what may. So here she says, I don't care. I don't care about this society. I will do what I wish to do. Maybe this is a very important message for all of us on this Women's Day. So taking this message, we will go ahead and look into the history of the women's movement. Now, what is the aim of this talk? Now, we have a lot of individual and there are a lot of unconscious movements. But today, we will look into the collective action. And we will look into the struggle in the past for 100 years and how we have been trying to achieve equality in the society. The aim is to briefly trace its history. We look into different phases, which I have divided into 4. We first look into the role of the reform movement. then the national movement, the third phase of the women's movement in the post-independence period up to the 2000. And then we go into the 21st century where we have a very different way of looking at things. So let us start the journey of looking into the women's movement. As I told you, there are 4 phases. The first phase, the social reform movements. The second phase, 1915 to 1947. So that is when Gandhiji takes up the movement. The third period would be the post-Indian independence period till 2000, and the fourth phase, the 21st century. So let us see the first phase. What is the character of the first phase? The movement started, of course, as I told you, the movement has always existed, but as an organization, it started in the 1800s, and it overlapped with the social reform movement. Attempts were made to better the condition of the women. And there were various organizations, various people who worked for this. And there were men as well as women together who tried to reform the society. There was Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj, but we must remember there were also Mahila Mandals in these Samaj, which tried to enhance the position of the women. There were social reformers. In fact, we say that the movement was spearheaded by the men who had been exposed to the liberal ideas due to Western education. So there are familiar names like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, M.G. Rana De, Behramji Malbari. There are so many that we have heard always in our history books. And they have protested against the injustice like the prohibition of marriage for widows, practice of sati, child marriage, denial of education to girls, etc. Now, there is a deliberate absence of record of women's voice. Now, when I was telling you about these names, we are all very, very familiar with these names. But how many women social reformers do we know about? Because we do not have the documented history in this patriarchal society of women's voice. The women's voice has been excluded in our history. So let us see. Of course, I will not be able to reflect on many, but recent research has shown that women have also contributed to this reform movement. So let us start with Rasundhara Devi. She is the first woman to write an autobiography. She wrote an autobiography, which is Amar Jibon, which is My Life, a Bengali book, where she deplores the condition of women, and she also makes a plea to the women to be critical of their own lives and the prevalent social customs and practices. Very importantly, she was self-educated. And here I just want to show you this this quotation. Is this my fate because I'm a woman? Just because I'm a woman, does it necessarily mean that trying to educate myself is a crime? So this one sentence will enable you to understand the kind of ethos this book has. We have Swarna Kumari Devi. She is lesser known by Tagore, who was her brother. She had started the Ladies Theosophical Society way back in 1882. And later she became a member of the Indian National Congress also. Then we have Pandita Ramabai. She was a scholar of Sanskrit. And she also writes a book, The Hindu Caste, Hindu Women, where she critiques the women's oppression, religion, and colonialism. And she has played a very important role in this reform movement. She set up several organizations, schools for girls, home for widows. So what is important is that her contribution is very, very important in this women's reform movement. Now, there was a conscious effort in this reform movement to educate women. This is the time when you have the Bethune School, the first school of India coming up. Jyotiba Phule trying to uplift the women through education. And because of this education, there were a number of women doctors, social workers, teachers, scholars, and they became the first caterers of this women's movement. Now, there were some radical voices. We can remember many, just a few here. Savitribai Phule, who became the forerunner in opening schools for educating low caste women. And how can we forget our own founder of the university, SNDT, Srimati Nathibai Damodar Thakasi University, founded by Keshav Karve. Now, it is definitely a very, very radical step because At that time, women going to the university was unheard of. But he had started this university being influenced by the Japan University, and history of SNDT University itself is a history of women's movement. Of course, along with these movements, the British also enacted certain laws which definitely gave us more independence, more freedom, and that is the Sati Prohibition Act 1829, the Widow Remarriage Act 1856, the Female Infanticide Prevention Act 1870, the Age of Consent at Marriage Act 1891, where the age of women was raised from 10 to 12. Not very high, but still it was an achievement. But let us look into the movement now. When we look at it from today's perspective, we will see that movement was very, very limited. In those days, of course, it was very revolutionary. But when we look at it from the lens of the 21st century, what we realize that this movement tried to confine the women to their traditional roles as wives and mothers. So education had a very limited aim of being an enlightened mother and an enlightened wife. There was no public role envisaged in this movement. So let us see whether in future we get a public role. So we go on to the second phase of the women's movement. And this is where we have a public role. Women come out of their houses for the first time and they participate in a movement. And this movement was a non-violent movement. And because it was non-violent, started by Gandhiji, that women could participate. And there were movements like the non-cooperation movement, civil disobedience movement, Quit India movement, which we are all very familiar with. And in these women have participated wholeheartedly. There were thousands of women who used to go into the streets, picket the shops, the liquor shops, the shops selling the foreign cloth. The spinning of khadi was a very, very important aspect of this movement. Gandhiji said, yes, women, you can participate by spinning khadi, boycott your British made goods. So this is how women was provided a space outside her home where she could participate. Then we have the women's movement where, they had to justify why women were out of their homes. You can see here, this is a very interesting picture where these women are going out with this kind of vessel to make salt. It's a civil disobedience movement. So here, you can see here that how did they justify? They said that women are fighting, women are mothers. So again, that self-sacrificing mothers come into the picture here. Okay, we are still considered as women, self-sacrificing mothers, and we are fighting for our mother country. But what is important in this movement is that we were assured, we started to feel that we need to have equal rights as men. So women's movement started talking not just about widow remarriage, sati, etc., etc. We said we now want equality. Now, what is interesting here is that the national movement and the women's movement have got now entangled. And this is the first movement and the only movement in the world where the women's movement and the national movement are entwined. So that is the most interesting factor in Indians' women's movement. There were different organizations which came up during this period. The main organizations which I would talk about is the Women's India Association, All India Women's Conference, which had branches all over India. Thousands of women joined these organizations, and National Council of Women in India. The first meeting was attended by 7,000 women. So you can understand the momentum it created in the society. And there were demands. What were the demands? Now let us see how the demands have changed from the first phase. They say, we want reforms in marriage. We want property laws, okay, where we also get property rights. And very important, we want equality. We want voting rights. So that is the way they change there are different demands from what we have in the first phase. There were new generation of women which came up. And this generation was more politically aware. They were conscious of their rights. Now let us see some of these women. Of course, there are so many. I would not do justice. Of course, we can just pay homage to them on this very important day. Let's take a few names, few of them. We have Kasturba Gandhi. She is always overshadowed by her husband, but she has also played a very important role. When her husband was imprisoned, it is she who took hold of the movement. It was she who gave the leadership. It is she who actually looked after those various ashrams which Gandhi had created. She worked on the Champaran welfare, on the welfare of women in the Champaran school. When Gandhi was busy with the Indigo movement, it is she who actually went and taught the women about basic things like hygiene, sanitation, etc. She participated in the civil disobedience movement. She also went for salt satyagraha, not with Gandhi, but later when Gandhi was already arrested. We have also Kasturba participating in the Quit India movement, and it is there that she was jailed and later she died imprisoned at Aga Khan Palace. So her contribution is very extraordinary, which is overshadowed again. We have Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. We all know Jawaharlal Nehru. She is the brother of Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, and she has played a very important role. She was elected to the provincial legislature of United Province as Minister of Local Self-Government and Public Health. So she was, right from the beginning, a member participating actively into the politics, trying to bring betterment for the women through politics. And she has been a member of the Constituent Assembly, and we know Constitution has guaranteed us a number of rights thanks to all these women who have made this possible. We have Annie Besant. We all know her from the Home Rule movement. It is she who was an Irish, came all over to India to help us to get self-rule. And education was important, she realized. So she became the founder of the Banaras Hindu University, one of the founder of Banaras Hindu University. Sarojini Naidu, we all know her as the Nightingale of India. We have read her poems right from childhood. But we also know that she was a proponent of civil rights movement, the women's emancipation, and of course, she was an anti-imperialist. She was one of the most important figure, and we know her, we are so much used to seeing her in the Dandi March walking along with Gandhi. Yes, she has played a very, very important role in the movement. Then we have Dr. Buthu Lakshmi Reddy, very, very interesting personality. She was the first house surgeon. In fact, she has so many firsts to her credit. She was the first person to study in the Maharaja College. She was the first woman house surgeon in government maternity and ophthalmic hospital. She was associated with the Women Indian Association. She was also into politics. She was a member of the British legislature in Madras presidency. And she has so many credits to her. I mean, she in fact left her thriving practice of medicine, and she just devoted her life for the upliftment of women and children. Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, she was a princess, but devoted her life for the politics, for the betterment of position of women. First woman cabinet minister of India, the health minister. In fact, we have AIMS because of her efforts. Sarla Devi, Swarna Devi's daughter, okay, niece of Tagore. She was the first to promote the use of Swadeshi products. And she started, very interestingly, a organization which is called as Bharat Stree Mahamandal, where actually, now we say that women should learn karate and other things to keep for self-protection. It is there in Bharat Stree Mahamandal that, women were taught how to use the lathi and other things to protect her and also the nation. And she has also a lot of other things to talk about. But here I would again say that she started at, the Vidva Shilpashram for the widows. She was very, very close to Gandhi. We have Sucheta Kriplani, very, very ardent freedom fighter and the first women chief minister of India. Aruna Asaf Ali, when all our leaders were arrested during the Quit India movement, who raised the flag of India on the Govalia tank at Bombay? It was Aruna Asaf Ali. She had the guts to do that, knowing that she will be imprisoned the next very moment. So because of her, we remember them as very, very, important leaders who have contributed not only to the freedom movement, but also to the women's movement. Now, paying homage to these women, we now move on to the third phase of the women's movement. Now, what happened in the post-independence period? We got our independence. We were very, very positive, optimistic. We thought we've got everything. We have got our independence. We have our constitution, which gives us equality. What else we need? We have the right to vote. We have got all our demands. We have nothing to demand for, right? We have got everything. So there was a complacency which set in from 1947 and it went on till 1970. But in 1970, something happened which changed the entire scenario. There was some kind of disillusionment with the independent India. There was so much of optimism after independence. People felt that there is everything that we have achieved, but there was growing gap between rich and poor. There was so much of corruption, the failure of developmental projects. And that is when there were different movements which came over all over India. The Naxalbari movement, the total revolution led by Jayaprakash Narayan, the Nav Nirman movement, the anti-price right movement, the Chipko movement, all these movements were movements which wanted to create a new India, India of their dreams, which they had dreamt when they had independence. And this is when the women played a very important role in these movements. And then they realized their collective strength. And it is then in 1974 that government came up with the report which is called as the Towards Equality Report 1974. Now what happened in this report? This report was very clear and it told us that having right to equality in the constitution does not give us equality. We need to have equality in our life in reality, not in the constitution. And that is then that we realize that we are facing inequality in every field. And what was happening in the international scenario? The International Women's Year was declared in 1975, which was extended to be the International Women's Decade. And all these together, there was a new consciousness which was created among the women. And there were lots of host of autonomous voluntary women's group which came up all over India. And at this time, let us see the fire which sparked the movement. And that is the Mathura rape case. What happened? A 14-year-old tribal girl, she was raped. There was a custodial rape by 2 policemen. Okay, she was raped. What happened then? And can you imagine the Supreme Court acquit the policemen, saying that it is fine because she already had a relationship. Actually, she had eloped with her boyfriend. Her brother went to the police station because of that. And they said that already she doesn't have a good character. Okay, there are no marks to show that she has protested. And therefore, we can say that she has actually approved this. And this is how what happened is the Supreme Court acquitted the policemen. And this was too much for the women to accept. And this is when number of organizations came up and they all came together. There are so many organizations, just to name a few: Forum Against Oppression of Women in Mumbai, Stri Sangharsh Sarheri in Delhi, Vimochana in Bangalore, Stri Shakti Sangatana in Hyderabad. So all women organizations from all over India, they came together asking for amendment in the laws concerning rape. There were people who were trying to get this idea among the people, asking the citizens of India to understand how there was some injustice being done on women. There were various journals which came up like Manushi in English, Hindi, Baija in Marathi, and all of them together started the struggle for women's right. Then there were other cases also which came up, which brought women together. We have the Roop Kanwar case, where you know that in 1987, we have this Anti-Sati Act passed in 1829 by the British. And then after so many years, after more than 150 years, we have another Sati in India. And that is by Roop Kanwar in Rajasthan. And that was very alarming. We realized that where we have gone, have we really got our rights? The Muslim Women's Bill in 1986, this is the Shah Bano case. Now, Shah Bano case, Shah Bano was divorced by her husband. She wanted maintenance. Maintenance was granted to her. But there were a lot of opposition to this maintenance given to her by the Muslim clerics, and they said this is against the Shariat law. And instead of the government supporting the women, then the then Prime Minister passed a law saying that the Muslim women would not get maintenance. So you can see here the women's movement was a failure, it seemed. The Muslim women were denied maintenance rights. There were other things happening all the time: alcoholism, wife beating, sexual harassment. So it is at this time that women started taking up these things and coming together and fighting for their rights. So they tried to, what did they do? They created awareness on these issues, and they tried to also provide an alternate support structure. They themselves supported the women. They did not rely alone on the government. Of course, they asked for legal reforms, but along with that, they themselves took up and helped the women. Like, for example, giving legal aid, counseling, short stay homes. All these things were done to, give a holding hand to the women who have been suffering. In 1980s, there were again so many organizations coming up, and every organization had their own strategy. They were all trying to take up the movement in their own way. Besides this, there was a further divide between the activists and the academicians. There were some people who were looking into the women's movement, the women's studies developed at this period. They were looking at from the academician point of view, and some of them were activists. But there was a divide between them. They didn't come together. So this was the lacunae of this movement. And then in the 1990s, of course, we have some few achievements. For example, when there was a women's organization, a women's in Beijing conference in 1995, along with the government, the women also, these women organizations also sent a counter report to actually give them a true picture of what the women are having, the condition of the women in India. And we can see that in 1990s, more and more women started getting involved in policy as policy makers by the government. Now, this is very important because at least now women's voices were heard by the policy makers. So this is how the women were slowly getting involved in the government policies. Of course, many of them say this is just a tokenism. Government were involving women, not because they wanted to listen to the women, but just as a tokenism. But what is important is that, yes, we had a voice in these policies. Very interestingly, at this period, the women's movement diversified, not restricted only to the women's issues. Women were fighting for environment. We have the Bhopal gas tragedy, which they talked about, the forest dwellers' rights, displacement of people and loss of their lands in the construction of big dams. Okay, the Sardar Sarovar Dam, for instance, loss of agricultural land because of the special economic zones. So all these movements together came up, and they were in correspondence with the women's movement. They were fighting together, not just for women, but for the society, but for all class of the society, the minorities of the society. Now we move on to the fourth phase, and this seems to be one of the interesting phase. Now the question is, can we call it a fourth phase? Yes, let us see how we can call it a fourth phase. In the 1990s, there was economic liberalization, there was changing lifestyle, we had globalization, more avenues opened, we had different types of organization coming, the market economy becoming very, very important, very active. And it is at this time that we have growing number of educated, professionally skilled, and financially independent women who were questioning the gender roles and expectations. And this brought the question of women's freedom, choice, and desire. So women were coming up, asking for their rights openly in the family, within the family. And this is the time where we started facing backlash from conservative Indians. And what did they say? Rather than tackling the root cause of misogyny and sexism or ensuring women's safety in public places, what did the state and society do? They responded by patronizing and policing the young women's behavior. Okay, like for example, women should wear good clothes. It is the clothes which matter, because of which she gets raped. These kind of statements are made by people who are also in the government office. And what they try to do is they try to restrict the women's movement. So instead of changing the mindset of the society, they try to restrict the women from going out into the society. Are we going to accept these? No, there is going to be a movement. On top of that, there was a very important Nirbhaya case all of us are aware of. 2012, the fatal gang rape of the 23-year-old student in Delhi. And this became a tipping point. All women again came back together, rallying for unconditional freedom. And they said, women have absolute right to their choices, their bodies, and to the movement in public spaces at any time, whether it is day or night. And this is how the outmoded cultural beliefs were challenged. And then this is how government also had to change certain laws, and new laws were passed after this movement which came up after the Nirbhaya case. Now let us see some interesting movements that we have. In fact, most of these movements that we have in the 21st century, these are the movements led by the millennial Indian women who have very radical ideas different from the earlier generation. And they have initiated a series of social media campaigns. Now let us see what those social media campaigns are. There are so many and very interesting ones. A new way of showing their protest. For example, in 2003, we had the Black Noise Project. Now, if you look at Black Noise Project, you can always find out what it is. It is a movement. They have a website, they have a newsletter. And this movement, it talks against eve teasing. And they say, we carry the silence, the shame, the blame for experiencing sexual violence. And we never have asked for it. So there is a protest against this blame on women for being a victim of sexual violence. Okay, so it was a protest against the way society looked at the victims of sexual violence. So this is a complete online movement. Then this, I'm sure many of us remember, in 2009, we had the Pink Chaddi movement. What is this movement? This is a Facebook group which was formed. Now, why this group was formed? This is because the Sri Ram Sena, which was, it attacked some women in a pub at Mangalore. Because those women had gone into a pub, they were attacked, and they said that we were protecting women culture, our Indian society, Indian culture. And they announced that if we see any couple during the Valentine Day, we are going to force those couple to get married. We will not allow any couple during the Valentine Day. So this is when this Facebook group was formed. And this group invited women to send pink color underwears, which were to be sent to the office of Sri Ram Sena. Their leader was Pramod Muthalik. And can you imagine? It started with 300 members. Slowly, the membership started increasing. There were 30,000 members in this group. And there were 2,000 chaddis which arrived in the office of the Sri Ram Sena. So this was a way to show that you cannot put women down. Okay. So the Pink Chaddi movement says that today they are not allowing us to go to the pub. Tomorrow they will ask us to, they will put other restrictions on us. We are not going to take it. 2011 Slut Walk. Of course, this movement started in Canada, but again carried on to India. Now, what happened is, in Canada, there was a police officer who suggested that women should avoid dressing like sluts. Now, what does he mean by slut? He means that women should avoid wearing some particular type of clothes which may lead them to be raped by men. And this is where the women came out into the streets dressed in scanty clothing, and they said, we are not going to listen to these kind of things. And that is how the slut walk movement protest started, and this spread all over India also. We have 2011, the Why Loiter project. Shilpa Phadke has played a very important role in this. And what does she say? She says that why is it that the public space is not open to us at night? Why is it that at night we are not allowed to go out? We also have the right to loiter. Loiter means whenever women, whenever a woman goes somewhere, she's asked, what were you doing there? Kyun gaye the aap wahan par? Why do I have to do something always? Why can't I just loiter? I also have a right over the public space like any other person. So this is how the Why Loiter project has started. It's a movement where we say that we have a right over a public space at any time, whether it is day or night. 2015, we have the Pinjra Tod movement, that is the Break the Cage movement. Now, what is this movement? This is, there was a letter sent to Jamia Millia Islamia University saying that women are not supposed to be given access to the library at late night hours. So there was a movement against this, and this movement was not just restricted to the Jamia Millia University. It went throughout the country, and they said, why do you have to curfew rules in student halls? Why do we have curfew time for women? Why do we have to restrict our time? We need to be free. We need to be free to go anywhere whenever we want. It is not we who have to change. Let the society change their mindset. Let them understand that we also have equal right over everything, every public space. So this is the Pinjra Tod movement of 2015. 2017, we have the Bekhauf Azadi movement, a very interesting movement. Now, what is this movement? This movement was started because there was a lady in Haryana whose name was Varnika Kundu, and she was stalked by two men, and they happened to be from the political family. And it is then that there were women who went in front of the Rose Garden of Chandigarh, and they started a movement. And what did they say? What was their message? They said, "Ye raat bhi hamari hai, ye sadke bhi hamari hai, ye chand hamari hai, ye tare bhi hamare hai." So this is what they try to say, that we have a right over everything. Why should we always have this fear? Fear of what? Fear? Why do we have all these restrictions? Why do we have to have the curfew on us? Let us be free in every way. So again, a freedom on public spaces. With the same motto, we have this Bekhauf Azadi. And I'm sure we all have in our memories the Me Too movement. And in this Me Too movement, many have come out, spoken freely about the sexual abuse which they have undergone in their life. Now, many say that, what is the success of the Me Too movement? Did these perpetrators really get punishment? Probably no. But at least it is a knock, right? And we have realized, men have realized that yes, we can't take women for granted. At least there is a change in the mindset. So this is how the youth of the country have come up with these movements. And there are deep-rooted problems which they are looking into. It is just not property rights, marriage law, etc. They want gender equality. It's a fight against gender inequality. So this is what we are trying to do. We are trying to get equality. The sexual violence which persists, that is what we are raising our voice against. Okay? And this movement has turned, it is taking the help of social media. Now, many will say that social media, very few women have access to social media. Yes, that's true. But definitely, it is creating a kind of awakening, not only among women, but among all the people in the society. All the people have to know that, yes, women are equal. And we have to respect the equality of women. these movements are a way to get into that equality. Minorities have also come up in this period. We have the sex workers organization, which is fighting for respect and against the police and PIMS harassment. There are transgender, there are LB who are coming out and asking for recognition of their sexuality. There are floodgates which are open for millions of mutinees today. And today we have open lesbian organizations. Let us respect them. Everyone has a right to their sexuality. Let us respect them. All are equal. So what is the important feature of the fourth wave? We have the social media led holistic movement. And it combines women's freedom with a wider call for social justice for minority men and women. So social justice is what we call for. And way ahead, of course, government has passed a number of legal reforms, and there is a change in the mindset of the society and women themselves. So yes, we are not going to just depend on government enacting a law. Imagine the law which government is supposed to pass, where we are supposed to get 33% of reservation of seats in the parliament, has been in the parliament. The bill is in the parliament for so many years together. It hasn't been passed. Yes, we are having our rights now in the local self-government. We have reservations in the local self-government. But why not in the parliament? We are waiting for the government to pass the bill. It takes years for government to pass a bill when it comes to women issues. So what do? Do we wait for government only? No. We change the mindset of the society. Let us all change. Let us all take a place that yes, we change today. And let us give equality. Let us understand that we are all equal. And with this, I would like to end with a quotation by Susan Anthony, who says, "I declare to you that women must not depend upon the protection of man, but must be taught to protect herself and take her stand." So we take a stand that we are equal, and there anyone takes away our equality, our right to equality. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello. Prakash, what is the next?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Madhumita Bandyopadhyay, for your wonderful speech today on this International Women's Day. It is said that no matter where you live, what you do, irrespective of your caste or gender, religion or economic status, each and every woman should be aware of her rights. This is very true in today's context. Each woman has a right to live with dignity and as an empowered individual. So today we had with us Dr. Madhumita Bandyopadhyay, who had given a speech, a talk on the women's right. The talk was very informative, very inspiring, and we come to know many things from you, Dr. Madhumita. She has given a historical perspective of various women personalities who fought for women's right. We in the current society, I think all the women in the current society should be thankful to all those strong-willed women who fought for us, who gave us the path for development or for empowerment. Dr. Madhumita has rightly gave us insight into the various laws, reports, campaigns related to the women's issues. Some of them are warning, like sexual abuse or rape and all. And I think it is very helpful to all the young girls out there. Thanks to Dr. Madhumita for giving us your time. We are very thankful to you.
Thank you.
And all the participants, all the wonderful and beautiful ladies out there, we wish that with this inspiring talk, you get inspiration to fight for your rights and to work for your counterparts. Thank you so much, Dr. Madhumita.
Thank you.
Over to you, Ved Prakash sir.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद रितु मैम, आपने सही कहा। बहुत ही जानकारीप्रद सूचनाएं मैडम के तहत से आई पीपीटी के माध्यम से, और आज के कार्यक्रम का उद्देश्य भी यही है। हम आधी दुनिया का पूरा सच बताने की कोशिश इन छोटे छोटे प्रोग्राम, छोटे छोटे कार्यक्रमों के माध्यम से या फिर राष्ट्रीय लेवल के इस संगोष्ठी के माध्यम से करते हैं। इतिहास बदल चुका है, चीजें बदल गई हैं और अब स्त्रियां जो है वो दौर में नहीं है जहां पर तुलसी कहा करते थे ढोल गंवार शूद्र पशु नारी सकल ताड़ना के अधिकारी, या फिर कबीर कहते हैं नारी की झाई परत अंध होत भुजंग, कबीरा तिनकी कौन गति नित नारी के संग। वो दौर बदल गया है। राष्ट्र कवि मैथिली शरण गुप्त को याद करें, उन्होंने कहा कि अबला जीवन हाय तुम्हारी यही कहानी, आंचल में है दूध और आंखों में पानी। हमारे कवि मित्र हैं सर्वेश त्रिपाठी, उन्होंने कहा अब अबला अबला नहीं रही, अबला अब सबला हो गई है। मैं आप लोगों से उनकी वो 2 पंक्तियों की कविता जो है, कविता बड़ी अच्छी है, बड़ी जानदार है, मैं आप लोगों से शेयर करता हूं और मुझे यकीन है कि आप लोगों को अच्छा भी लगेगा। उन्होंने लिखा है कि जो नारी पहले थी अबला वो सबला बनकर उभरी है, तोड़ बंधनों की पायल को, खोल आज घूंघट के पट को, तोड़ बंधनों के पायल को, खोल आज घूंघट के पट को, जग के सुंदर नील गगन में वो बिजली बनकर चमकी है, जो नारी पहले थी अबला वो सबला बनकर उभरी है। नहीं आश्रित आज किसी के, साधन सब उसकी मुट्ठी में, दुष्टों का मर्दन करने को वो चंडी बनकर दहकी है, जो नारी पहले थी अबला वो सबला बनकर उभरी है। नभ हो थल हो आकाश कहीं, कोई ऐसा अब क्षेत्र नहीं, यत्र तत्र सर्वत्र ही इसकी विजय पताका फहरी है, जो नारी पहले थी अबला वो सबला बनकर उभरी है। नारी अब कोई बोझ नहीं, उसको बंधन स्वीकार नहीं, वो हस्ती स्वाभिमान से भरा प्रवासी बहती है, जो नारी पहले थी अबला वो सबला बनकर उभरी है। और अंतिम पंक्तियों में कहते हैं कि जब जग सारा थक जाता है, नारी के चरणों में आता है, तब वो अपनी शक्ति कृपा से सबको जीवन देती है, वो नारी पहले थी अबला वो सबला बनकर उभरी है। तो इस बेहतरीन कविता के साथ हम कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाते हैं। कार्यक्रम अपने अंतिम पड़ाव पर है और अंतिम पड़ाव जो कार्यक्रम का होता है, कार्यक्रम में जो भी बातें कही गई हैं, लोगों के मन में ढेर सारी जिज्ञासाएं आई होंगी, ढेर सारे प्रश्न उभरे होंगे। तो इस प्रश्न उत्तर का जो ये सेशन है, इसके लिए मैं कृतिका और सुजाता से अनुरोध करूंगा कि वो आए और जो ढेर सारे प्रश्न जो है श्रोताओं के मन में आए होंगे, विद्यार्थियों के मन में आए होंगे, तो उनके प्रश्नों से आज के हमारे जो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, जो हमारे विशेषज्ञ हैं, उनको रूबरू करेंगे। तो स्वागत है सुजाता और कृतिका आपका।
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Both of us have given wonderful session. The PPT was very nice. Ma'am, we will proceed with some few questions. Like Asha, ma'am, I would like to answer this question. What should be done to fulfill the needs of women and girls in this pandemic?
Yes, Sujata, needs are many. There are economic needs, physical needs of every woman. So what particular needs is this girl the question referring to, I'm not sure. But what would you like me to focus on?
I think, ma'am, the girl is asking about the economic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Needs are many. Economic needs also, unless the girl is educated, she will not be able to get economic independence. No matter what level of her education be, if she is willing to strive to see that her family is upheld, the values of her family are upheld, and she takes up a job outside, and whatever she's earning, even at home sitting, even if she's uneducated, being a homemaker, she can take up so much of jobs that would see to it that she can take up jobs at home. Like, for example, cooking is there. Many things she can make and sell to see that her family is economically independent. So education, with education, she will get better opportunities. But even if she is not educated, she can thrive to make her family economically independent by the different work that she can. Tailoring is an occupation women can take up if they have skills in that. Cooking, of course, women are very good at that. So whatever she would decide to, she can take up and survive.
Oh, wow. Thank you, ma'am. That means their hobbies they can take.
Yes.
Yes,
hobbies
correct,
can
ma'am.
be,
Hobbies can be.
hobbies can be revenue generating also. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Now, next question is, what steps should be taken for the girls' education during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Is that question to me?
Yes, Asha, ma'am, for you.
Yes. The government, all the state governments have made it compulsory to see that girls do not fall out of the education system because of COVID. So what is happening is they are given the government has asked all the schools and colleges not to force the parents to pay the school fees. And in many organizations, whether it be school or colleges, they have reduced the school fees and the college fees. They have also made convenient for the parents to pay the fees through the installments. And there are so many NGOs who are helping students with their fees so that education is not disrupted. So these are various steps that the government and the NGOs and individuals are taking to see that especially girl children don't fall out of education. And in Maharashtra, girls' education is free up to the 12th standard. So it's not major problem here in Maharashtra, but other states are also seeing to it to see that to help the families educate the girl child.
Okay, thank you, Asha, ma'am. Now, this question is for Madhumita, ma'am. Ma'am, the question is, does Women's Day also include trans women and fight for their rights and equality?
Yes, definitely. They are also women. Okay. And they also we need to understand that they also have a kind of thing which is, I mean, they are different. They are in the minority, and we need to protect them. We need to understand they have a different form of sexuality. So we need to protect them. We need to accept them in our society. It's very, very important that we change our perspective towards them. They are also women. Let us give them the liberty to accept their sexuality and we also accept their sexuality.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now the next question is, what are some of the ways Partners Global and the Partners Network work to advance women's rights?
See, the Partners Global is an organization which is trying to bring together the society, okay, all people cooperatively working for certain ends. Like if you want to achieve something, the Partners Global will help you to cooperatively achieve it. If it is a demand which is important. So definitely Partners Global can go a long way in the women's movement. We can all come together with the help of Partners Global, create a global movement together and fight for our rights.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now the next question is, are there any self-help groups who are dealing with the socio-economic development of women?
Yes, there are a number of groups. That is what I have been talking about. In fact, the movement started in the in 2000. I mean, from 1970s, and there are number of movements, number of women organizations all over India. Actually, there are so many, and these women, they are not, as I told you, that they are not just relying on the government. They have themselves taken up this movement and they are fighting for the women's right. So there are many organizations which are ready to help in this women's movement.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Now, I can add, Madhumita, I think Lijjat Papad is one of the fine examples.
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Correct. Now, ma'am, the next question is there any symbol for Women's Day?
Actually, I'm so sorry. I don't know. I'm so sorry.
I don't think so. We women are the symbols of the day. That's it.
Really, I'm not aware of any symbol. We have to find out. It's a very good idea to have a symbol.
Okay, now I will ask my colleague Kritika ma'am to proceed with the question answer session. Yes, Kritika ma'am, please.
Thank you, Sujata ma'am, and Asha ma'am and Madhumita ma'am. Thank you so much for such insightful lecture today. And my question to Asha ma'am is there a direct relation between the COVID pandemic that has happened and domestic abuse? And who are the major victims in this? And how can they overcome it?
Yes, research has proved that the domestic violence because of COVID has increased. And it is so because, both husband and wife or the lady and the partner are at home 24/7. And earlier they used to get a respite if they're going out of the house, going out for their job, that 7-8 hours they've spent time with themselves and the people that they would like to. But here, during the lockdown, what happened was 24/7 partners are all home. And then because of this, abuse was found to be too much in girls and women all over the world. And in a study, it was reported that in Colombia, 131% more helplines were used than the previous year. So you can imagine the amount of violence inside the home was there during the lockdown.
Ma'am, is there something that we can tell girls or an awareness that we can spread so that this reduces or they have some help?
The awareness that we can create is that women should know that they have a right to fight back. Number one. Number two, they should talk about it. We all know so many cases where in the family, when they were young, their grandparents or uncles, neighbors have abused them. And in many cases, it is the mother who says, please don't talk about it. So when you're not talking about it, what happens is the person who, the perpetrator, he knows that this person is not going to talk about it. And so the violence becomes more and more. So we need to talk, we need to confine in people who would help us. And I'm sure there are so many organizations around us which would take the lead to see that the girl gets justice. Look at what happened to Nirbhaya. Because of her, awareness is there many times more than what it was earlier. People are talking openly about it. Sexual harassment and all was not talked about it earlier. Now the mother came forward to get justice for her daughter, isn't it? So if we talk about it, we are sure to get help from all the corners wherever we can seek help.
Thank you, ma'am. And another question is, can we discuss some of the basic rights that all of us should know, some of the basic women rights that all of us should know?
Basic rights, we have the right to say no. The very first right we as young girls should learn is the right to say no. And the second one I would say is my body is my body. I will not allow anybody else to touch it without my permission. This would lead to a lot of awareness in women to see that their body is their property. They have a right to say yes or no. The second most important, third most important, I would say, is the right to earn. Right to education, of course, the government of India has given us, has made it compulsory for all. With that, right to a living, right to earn, right to go. When you're educated, you should have the right to go out and work so that you earn for yourself. Or I always say in the women's studies lecture in my class that a man is considered to be the breadwinner of the family, no doubt about it. But nowadays, more and more women are working. If the man is the breadwinner of the family, the women are the butter of that bread, which makes life more comfortable and easy. The next is the government has given us the right to vote. We all should see to it that we vote. We have a will, we have the mind to decide whom to vote. Not because my father is asking me to vote for the person, not because my husband is asking me to vote for that person. We choose the candidate we want depending on the abilities of that individual. So these are some things, which would make our life easier if we know about the right. Right to dignity also is one of the most important rights that a woman should have and should know about. Yeah, thank you.
I would like to add to this. Actually, if you see that there are many legal rights which have been given to us, and these legal rights are given by the Constitution. There are certain laws which have been made by the government. And the purpose of these laws is to protect the women right from the time she is in the mother's womb. So, for example, we have the right where we are not, the right against feticide, female feticide. So this is how it starts. Then we have right against infanticide, female infanticide. So once a girl is born, there is a practice where they kill the baby girl because the girls are unwanted in the society. So again, we have that. Then ma'am has already talked about the education rights. Then once you get married, you have the right to protection against domestic violence. Then very important is property rights. We do not ask for property rights. We take it for granted that property is supposed to be given to our brother, not to us. But we also have equal property rights with our brothers. So these are just a few additions which I wanted to make. And then sexual harassment at workplace. This is a very important thing. We have a right not to be sexually harassed at the workplace. So we have this women development cell, which every organization is supposed to have. So if you have any problem related to sexual harassment, you can always go to the women development cell and tell them whatever your problem is. So these are a few more additions to what Asha ma'am has just told us.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, one of the question is, why do many women not opt for legal way to deal with their injustice and inequality done to them?
This question is posed to who?
No, anyone can answer.
Asha, would you like to say about him?
Yes, I would say that many women don't come out to fight for their rights because, right from the very beginning, they are told जो घर में होता है वो घर के चार दीवारी में ही रहे, बाहर नहीं जाना चाहिए. So when you are suppose you are sexually abused, you go out and talk about it. It's the bad name for the family that comes. Okay, we all talk about, I mean, क्या है, लड़की की इज्जत होती है, लड़कों की नहीं होती है. The izzat family की लड़की से होती है. If something wrong happens to the woman or the girl, it is the izzat of the family that goes. If something wrong happens to the boy, it's of no use. I mean, nobody is concerned. So when you are aware of your needs, you can go out, you can speak to people, and that is how you can take care of yourself, your rights. You have to talk to people because nowadays the police also are becoming very sensitive. Even in every police station, there are women police officers who look into these types of cases. So it becomes easier for a woman or a girl to go and talk about it. And that is one of the reasons why more and more cases related to dowry, to sexual harassment, to rape are coming out nowadays. It's not that it was not there then and it is here now. We are feeling that too many things are coming out because it is being reported. Earlier it was not so. So unless you report, you will not. And the other deterrent, I think it is because the legal system takes a lot of time. That is one of the worst things why we women may not go out to fight for it. Look at the Nirbhaya case. It took 5-6 long years to decide. Unless we have a judicial system which gives us response immediately, it is not going to help. Who is going to fight? Who has the energy? Who has the money? Do we women have so much of, I mean, of course, energy in the sense to go behind that and see what is being said, what is being done, to attend the court every day, every time we are summoned is difficult. So unless we have a legal system which would give us easily whatever we are asking for, it will not help.
Yes, actually, when Asha ma'am was talking about the Nirbhaya case, it was on a fast track court, and that too it took so many years. So imagine cases take years together. It's a very system. The system is such that it becomes a deterrent for us to go and seek the help of law. The lawmakers, the way they make the law, the process of the law, the protectors of the law, somewhere they are not very approachable to us. And that is the reason why we do not go to the law, to take recourse of law. But definitely we have to change our mindset, be bold enough and take the help of law when necessary. Only then we can probably in the future come out with our rights.
And I would like to add to that, nowadays there are so many specialized lawyers who fight only for the women's cause. Like you will find lawyers who are fighting for domestic violence only. Those type of cases they take up. There are lawyers who fight for women who have been raped. So those he or she takes up those cases only. So very specific. There are people. So it helps, but you have to have the patience to go about it, which would take so much of time. There is understanding. There is awareness. nowadays. So the new generation will definitely go forward with it, not what we were like. So
And
I'm
regarding
hopeful.
the money, government is giving us legal aid. Women have the right to get legal aid. So definitely, and there are so many organizations who are willing to help us. So we have to approach the organizations, take help of the legal aid, and maybe we can get our justice.
Thank you, ma'am. And one of the last questions is, what measures could be taken by us on an individual level so that to increase equality and feminism?
Hello. Yes, Asha ma'am, would you please start?
See, equality has to be understood right from the very beginning. The day you are born, we should get the right to survive. Female feticide, infanticide are all issues. Unless we, who protects us? Who will protect us? Our mother? Does she have that much of strength? Unless she is educated, unless she is aware of her rights, she just can't. So I would say that if you should be aware of your rights to fight for it. If you are not aware, you don't know what to ask for. So you have to be aware. You have to have the confidence. And the other thing is, you need to groups to see that not only not only you are uplifted, also the people around, women and girls around you are uplifted. They also get help whenever they need. So that will go a long way in the society to see that we stand by each other when there's a need. And that is how the women's organizations and NGOs are working. It's not that I need them today, I go and ask for help. Tomorrow, if somebody else is needing some help from me, I draw back. So we need to form forces, groups, which would help to educate the women, talk to them about their rights, talk to them how to go about it. Fighting, beating and all doesn't help. It doesn't help unless you make the other, if somebody is beating you, unless you make the other person understand why he should not be doing it, doesn't make any sense. You ask him to stop, he will not stop, he will give you 2 more, he or she. So we need to make the person realize that whatever he's doing is wrong. Why is it wrong? And what can be done about it? Only then it will help. Otherwise, we are just beating around the bush to find answers, which we will never get. Yeah, Madhumita can add on if she feels like.
Yes, what is very important is, as ma'am has just said, we have to educate not just the women, educate the society. Women's studies, such courses should be introduced not just in women's university. They need to be introduced in every university. Even students of engineering should be getting to know about women's studies. It's only when we have an enlightened society that we can get our rights. So let us all together work for a society, not just the women being informed. It is also others also being informed. And with an informed society, enlightened society, we can get our equality.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for answering so many of our questions. And I would like to pass it on to Dr. Ved Prakash, sir. Thank you, sir.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कृतिका, सुजाता, आप दोनों जन को। एक बेहतरीन कार्यक्रम के अंतिम पड़ाव पर हम लोग पहुंच चुके हैं और आभार प्रदर्शन शेष है। मुझे ये पूरी तरह से जो है मन में भाव जग रहे हैं कि आज के इस वेबिनार से यकीनन ढेर सारी जो है जानकारियां, जो भी श्रोता इससे जुड़े हैं, जो भी लोग इससे जुड़े हैं, और दूर दूर तक मैसेज जाएगा, नया संदेश जाएगा। स्थितियां सचमुच बदल गई हैं। अब पुरानी बातों को रटने का कोई औचित्य भी नहीं है और चश्मा अब बदल के देखने की जरूरत है। जैसे कि मैंने सर्वेश की कविताओं में बात कही कि अब बहुत कुछ बदल चुका है और बदले हुए रूप को हमें एक्सेप्ट करना चाहिए और उसका पूरा सम्मान करना चाहिए। तो हम कार्यक्रम को अंतिम पड़ाव की तरफ ले जाते हैं और ये भी महज औपचारिकता होती है आभार प्रदर्शन की। तो वोट ऑफ थैंक्स के लिए मैं एनएसएस वॉलंटियर मानसी को बुलाना चाहूंगा। कि आप आए और हमारे जो आज अतिथि आए और उन्होंने ढेर सारी जानकारियां दी और अपना बहुमूल्य समय दिया, तो उनके प्रति महाविद्यालय की तरफ से, एनएसएस की तरफ से आभार प्रदर्शन करें। मानसी
जी, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. A very good afternoon to one and all. First of all, I would like to thank our trustee ma'am, Meena Ben Khitani, director ma'am, S. Kumudavali, and our principal, Dr. Asha Menon ma'am, for giving us the permission to host such an amazing and informative webinar. I would also like to thank Dr. Asha Menon ma'am and Dr. Madhumita Bandyopadhyay ma'am for making us aware about the vast history of women empowerment and empowerment in the world, and also giving us the glimpse of the capabilities that women have and how can they utilize them to create a better future, not only for them, but for the entire world. I would also like to thank all the NSS team members for their active participation and support. Also, I would like to thank all the vice principals, HODs of various departments for their support. I would also like to thank Mr. Satnam sir and Hashmat ma'am for their technical assistance. And most importantly, to all the participants from college and outside college from different states who are attending this webinar, and to all the NSS volunteers. Hope you all enjoyed it. Looking forward for your active participation in many more events to come. Thank you, everyone. Wishing everyone a very happy Women's Day. Thank you.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद मानसी। अब मैं हमारी प्रिंसिपल डॉक्टर आशा मेनन मैम से परमिशन लेकर के, आदेश लेकर के इस कार्यक्रम के समापन की घोषणा करना चाहूंगा।
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद मैडम। एक बेहतरीन कार्यक्रम के लिए जो भी जुड़े रहे सबको ढेरों बधाइयाँ, और महाविद्यालय के इस प्रकार के कार्यक्रम की हमेशा अपेक्षा रहती है। हम जल्दी ही ऐसे ही अनेक कार्यक्रमों के साथ मिलते रहेंगे, जुड़ते रहेंगे। सभी का बहुत बहुत आभार। एक बार फिर से आज के दिन विशेष की ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं।
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ved Prakash sir. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being a part of this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.